Well, welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson, where we discuss so many of the issues and facing boomers, their parents, and of course what we know as an aging population. We try to get many of the questions that all of you have on so many different subject matters. And I just want to thank everybody so much for just partaking in the show. I mean, we get a lot of you have downloaded our free app on iTunes, on the iPhone, as well as on the Android phone. So just type in Aging Boomers under apps, and then you get updated on all of our shows, which we do. We're doing each Friday and Monday. So thank you for that. Those of you that have gone on to iTunes, those of you who go on iHeartRadio. So we're on a lot of different channels on the internet. So I wanted to thank you and also let you know that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority. Senior Care Authority is a professional senior placement and elder care management organization. It has a national network of professionals to help in determining the right path for seniors in receiving proper care and supervision. Whether it's in-home care, assisted living, residential, or memory care, you can talk and meet with a senior care advisor right in your area. Just call 888-809-1231, or you can go to seniorcareauthority.com. So I'd like to introduce our guest today. Her name is Jude Bijou, and Jude is a respected psychotherapist, professional educator, workshop leader, and longtime student of Eastern philosophy. Her theory of attitude reconstruction, which is a book she wrote, evolved over the course of more than 30 years working with clients as a licensed marriage and family therapist. The hands-on process that grew out of this lifelong learning presented in her book, Attitude Reconstruction, integrates the worlds of Western psychology, Eastern philosophy, and body-based techniques for accessing and expressing emotions in order to create lasting behavioral change. So I want to welcome you to the Aging Boomers. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's just my pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's. I know you're in sunny Santa Barbara, California, which is one of my favorite places, not only in the country, but in the world. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
That it is.
Yeah. So I guess usually the question I start out with, and you've probably been asked it before, especially with authors, is what was kind of the catalyst to have you write this book called Attitude Reconstruction? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I grew up not being happy and figured that there had to be a manual somewhere that I was just missing. So as I looked around, I didn't find anything in the Western thought through school, and went over to the East and started to pick up pieces there. And then I became a psychotherapist. And all of those elements had to come together. My drive to go, okay, I want to feel happier, and I want to help people. They all came together in the realm of emotions and really understanding the importance of expressing our emotions constructively. And so from there, it grew out into, gee, what are the kind of thoughts that are going to be helpful, and how do we communicate in ways that are going to be helpful, and how do we take action? So everything really grew out of that initial desire to find personal happiness.
Well, that's great, and so it made. I'm sure it was not only a book for many other people, it was in a sense for yourself too, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it had to be both spiritual but also extremely practical. My father was a behavioral child psychologist, and so I had to be concrete. And I thought of how the pieces are going to come together, and how can we apply them really practically. And that's what it is, because it's not a book that you have to read cover to cover. It's like, oh, I'm interested in communication, read that. Oh, I'm interested in changing my thinking or dealing with my emotions. So it had to be very practical, but also resonate within as being correct, as feeling, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, so how does, I guess failing to deal with our emotions lead to problems in life? I know that, the show is called The Aging Boomers. We get a lot of people who are, dealing with issues with their own children and their parents. Sometimes it's that generation is called the sandwich generation. But, sometimes everybody's at such a fast pace, and, what would you say as far as, dealing with their emotions?
Well, I think that what we got is really bad messages from our parents and from our society growing up that says, don't handle them. Pretend that everything's okay. So as children, it was all right to have a temper tantrum or to cry or to be afraid. But as we grew up, we got those messages that say, don't do it, don't do it. And what we then did is we internalized that sadness and that anger and that fear. And that's what I really discovered is that when we have those emotions bottled up, they start to come out in very predictable ways that aren't very pleasant, don't connect us with other people, and don't connect us with ourselves. So I really discovered that all of our problems stem back to unexpressed sadness, anger, and fear.
And you have a term in your book. You call it, is it if I'm pronouncing it right, emoting constructively.
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that we start out by getting that emotions are really physical, pure sensations in the body. Emotion, energy in motion. That's what the word means. And there's not a lot of words. We overlay it with words, but it's a pure sensation in the body. So when we feel the emotion of anger, our body heats up and we want to strike out. And that's very different from the energy when we're afraid or anxious, whereas we're more cold and feel agitated. Or when we feel sadness, we feel down and we feel that heaviness. But they're just sensations in the body. And if we give ourselves permission to emote, to handle those emotions physically but constructively and naturally, then the energy moves out of our body and doesn't get stuck. So instead of, being overwhelmed and freaking out and anxious and nervous, we can shake and shiver like a dog at the vet or a leaf on a tree and just woo, 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 and I'm shaking my arms and my legs and I'm moving that energy up, because what we do is instead of doing what the body wants to do, which is to move that agitation energy, we tighten up. So instead of tightening up, we shake it out. And it seems so silly and so ridiculous, but it works to just let that energy out, just shake it. And I'm making sounds. That's the constructive. I'm not going, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do. I've got so much to do. I'm going, oh, woo, 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 woo. I just have to move this energy out of my body. Woo, woo. So I'm owning it as mine and just releasing it.
Mm-hmm. I know that people go to acting school and to learn how to just cry on the spot. I mean, how do you, some people probably can find, I guess everybody's different, a little bit easier to cry or do that shivering, like you're saying, releasing that energy. But, those that have a more difficult time doing it, what do you recommend to them?
Well, you start where you can. If you feel like you've got a lot of anger stored up, you can go, okay, I'm going to lay on the back of my bed and flail and kick and just be safe and just pound and see if I feel better afterwards, or push against the wall. So we can, or stomp around. So we can really fake it till we make it. So that means that we just, okay, I feel that heaviness. I feel that sadness. Well, but I can't cry. all right, so I might need to bring some props in, maybe take a picture or look at pictures of loved ones or listen to music or go to a movie, rent a movie that we know really touches us, that we can call in those emotions, because for many of us it is really stuck. It's like, oh, I can't do that, it feels so distant. But if we sort of invite it in and deal with the emotion that is most prevalent, then very soon they all start to get enlivened. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's just fear. I don't have to be so overwhelmed. I just going to shake it out for a minute before I give a talk or, deal with my boss or whatever. We just shake out that energy. Just do it because it's natural. We're doing what children naturally do. And then they sit back into present time reality, because little kids, they're not holding on to it. They're not getting in, to their heads and starting to go, oh, I have anxiety. I have phobias now. Oh, I can't sleep. I have insomnia. Oh, they don't do those things. They express the emotion, and then the energy goes. And that's what we're doing. We're following their lead.
So, Jude, what do you say to the person who might be, listening to this now, saying, I don't sleep much. I've got a child going into college. We have to pay for that. I've got a parent diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and they didn't plan well, so we're having to help pay for that. I mean, you're talking a lot of stress, personally, financially, all of that. How do you deal with that type of situation?
Well, I would deal with it both on the emotional level, because that's a lot of fear, a lot of, what if, so it's going to happen in the future, and trying to juggle so many things. So I do need to shake and shiver to move that energy out, because otherwise my head is just going to keep spinning and I'll just be in the same old ruts. So I'm going to shake out that energy, and while I'm doing it or after I'm doing it, I'm going to use my thinking to support myself to calm down, because we want to feel more peace. Like the opposite of fear is peace. And so rather than feeling agitated, we want to feel calm and then act and take care of all of those things from a calm place. So we can say to ourselves, everything will be all right. Everything is all right. I'll handle one thing at a time. One thing at a time. Everything's going to be all right. And do that kind of self-talk where we're interrupting the old thinking, the freaking ourselves out thinking, and bringing in the reality. All right, I'll handle it one at a time, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. And just by doing that with the mind, we can calm the body, and then we can deal with what needs to be addressed at that particular time.
That's good input, great input. So your book is called Attitude Reconstruction, and we'll find out in just a few minutes, how people can get the book and all that. But when you talk about attitude, what do you actually mean? How does attitude, what are attitudes? How do they affect our lives? Tell us a little bit more about, how you came up with that name of the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, an attitude really is all-encompassing. They're just basic ways that we think and ways that we communicate and ways that we act. It's an attitude that we take on. And what I realized that with sadness, when we don't deal with the sadness enough, we take those attitudes on about ourselves. We feel negative about ourselves. I feel unworthy, and I feel codependent or dependent on other people, or I feel passive, and I'm hard on myself. Those are core attitudes that we all have, some more than others, but they indicate that I just need to start to allow myself to cry some more and start telling myself those positive messages, interrupting the old messages. So that's the kind of bad thinking and bad attitudes that we take on about ourselves that have to do with unexpressed sadness. And unexpressed anger is what we take out on other people. You should be different. I have an expectation and you're not leading up to it. Those are the kind of things. I'm out there. My focus is on that you're not okay and you should do it my way. That kind of thinking those are the bad attitudes, the core bad attitudes that really indicate that the person has a lot of unexpressed anger.
Right.
And for fear...
I would think that I know that happens sometimes with an adult child and their parent. Things could have happened from the past, and a lot of that anger comes out. So,
yes.
You see some of that as well.
Yes, and it's so important to get nobody else is angry at that person. This is my anger, rather than focusing on if they would only be like this and they didn't do this, and all that kind of stuff is only going to make you feel worse and you feel more angry and more separate. And so we have to own it about, gosh, my parents did the best they could. That's over. That people are the way they are, not the way I want them to be. We need to coach ourselves and put in the reality that now is the time. All right, I've got to let some of that stuff go so that I can be the person that I want to be. I can be that person that is full of joy and love and peace, because that's who I want to be. I don't want to be holding on to all of those other things. But it's so important to accept other people for their differences, because then we can do what we need to do to take care of ourselves, but from a loving place, not from an angry place.
Yeah, very good. You mentioned also in the book about rewiring oneself. Talk a little bit about that. What do you mean by rewiring oneself?
Well, it means that we take a look and see what kind of messages we keep telling ourselves, whether we keep freaking ourselves out with, I've got so much to do, or whether we're, going around and judging everybody negatively and with those shoulds and, they should be different, or whether we're putting ourselves down and going, oh, that was stupid. Oh, you made a mistake. Oh, gosh, nobody likes you. We can start to identify those kind of thoughts that don't serve us well, that we picked up really early when we couldn't deal with our emotions, when we no longer had permission to express them physically and let them out of our body. And so we can start to interrupt those and then slap in what contradicts it that's true. So it's true that one thing at a time. I'll handle the future in the future. I'll handle the future in the future. So much more pacifying than going, oh my gosh, oh, this, oh no. We can systematically replace those old thoughts with what is true.
So, certainly we have some more questions for you, but I just wanted you, just take a quick break and just tell people how they can get your book, Attitude Reconstruction, how they could get a hold of you if they would like to. I don't know if you're, you're doing any consultation, or so why don't you just tell people how to get the book, how to get a hold of you, etc.
Absolutely. Well, the book is called Attitude Reconstruction, and it's available on Amazon, both as an ebook and a regular paperback book. And also I have a website that has the same name, Attitude Reconstruction, where a person can take a free survey to really pinpoint what core attitudes are holding them back from feeling the emotions of joy, love, and peace. And then they can go to another link that gives very practical suggestions about how to deal with those attitudes that are holding them back. So as well as the website just has super amount of information about any possible topic that I love sharing information about attitude reconstruction and just giving those pieces that we just weren't taught. So because a person can sign up for a free monthly newsletter or my blog or so on. But there's just a wealth of information that is simple And as well, absolutely, you can contact me for individual coaching or consulting for groups, because I want to spread that message of that we can do something. We can make changes little by little that take us toward joy, love, and peace.
Yeah, I've been to your website. It's great. So go to it. It's name of the book, attitude-reconstruction.com. So another question I have for you is, it's interesting. I'd like you to talk about what you mean, the difference between truths and affirmations. I know you're not a big fan of affirmations, so tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, an affirmation is something that we wish was true. I have all of the abundance that I need. But maybe you don't. Maybe you have bills to pay and you're in a financial crunch. Repeating what's not true isn't going to help as much as being really focused on the reality. All right, I need to get a job, or I need to get a second job. Okay, don't freak out about the future too much. Stay with what's going to help you right now.
Yeah. I have a question for you on if that's what you mean by affirmations. You know, a lot of people that go on to Facebook and put a lot of information out there, some overdo it a little bit, and you know, looking for all those likes. Is that an affirmation?
Well, I see more of I guess that they're affirmation that people like them, but I think of affirmation as just a wish that can be positive, but not necessarily so powerful as the truth. But you can take a truth about yourself, like, I'm whole and complete. I'm whole and complete. Or, you know, my job is to really focus on myself. My job is to focus on myself. Right. Because then from listening within to ourselves, we can go, okay, and now what do I need to do in that situation? So a truth is absolutely true. My job is to focus on myself. I can help others. Maybe I need to help my parents or friends or pay attention. But it's like going back to what they say in the airlines. In the case of an unlikely event of a change of cabin pressure, affix your own mask before helping others.
That's a good point. Yeah. So we only have a few minutes left. Unfortunately, I could talk to you for a lot longer, but so people that are in difficult situations, you know, a situation that they're kind of stuck with, how do they take action to get out of that situation? I mean, I know we could talk about somebody who has a lousy job, but we also could talk about someone who is taking care of a loved one, and they're thinking, well, how did this happen to me? You know, I've got my parent who has Alzheimer's, hardly knows me. What do you suggest to people who are in those types of situations?
Well, it's very stressful, absolutely. And I say, again, take care of yourself first, because then you have the energy and can be positive about offering service to other people, rather than going with that, oh, I don't want to do it, and how come I got here, and that's not really helpful. Rather than, I have to accept the lot that I have been given in life, and then I can turn within and say, well, now what do I do with that? What is the best thing to do with my parents? Or what do I need to do? Do I need to look for a new job? But we can ask within, especially if we start to handle our emotions and start to watch our thinking and keep our thinking to support ourselves in a positive way. We can start to hear what that quiet voice is, not that chatter in our mind that goes, oh, you should do this, and why did this happen, and so on. But we can really start to focus on what we know within ourselves, because that's where the truth really resides. And then we go, okay, I have to accept that my parents are, in declining health, and what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What's called for here? And then we can line up with that rather than resisting. So we need to get clear by turning within and asking ourselves, and then listening to the answer.
Right. We have just a moment or so left, and I know that in your book you include 33 destructive attitudes in the book. Can you possibly maybe just take one of them? We only have probably time for one. Let's say the one being overwhelmed or being excessively worried, and briefly go through the attitude reconstruction process. Am I giving you enough time to do that?
Absolutely, and
Okay.
That's just the one that came to my mind was worry. Since we when we can't sleep at night, that's worry. That the emotion there is fear. And so I really recommend it, even though it just sounds really ridiculous, is to shake that energy out of the body. Do it for like a minute or two, and it feels so good, and it relaxes the body, and the thinking just all calms down. And then you can go, all right, okay, I feel better. Now I can do that rewiring. I've attended to the emotion. Or maybe if I'm angry, I've had that little hissy fit or had that cry. But then I can attend to my thoughts. All right, how can I line up my thoughts to support me to do what I need to do? So I've got so much that I'm worried about. Well, let me write them all down. And then I can look, again, turn within and look, all right, which of these really are important? What needs to pay attention to first? And then as we go and make a list of what we need to do, we can be nice and specific, because the worry, we can just catapult ourselves way into the future and overgeneralize, where if we can stay nice and focused on one thing at a time. And then when we talk, we don't talk in those always and nevers. We go, all right, this is what needs attention. So those kind of things will help with worry. I keep myself focused on one thing at a time, and that I can do it. I can handle it. This will pass.
Great. Listen, it was great talking to you, Jude. Thanks so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers. Go out and get her book. It's a great book. I have it right here, called Attitude Reconstruction. You could get it on Amazon. Also go to Jude's website by the same name, attitude-reconstruction.com. Jude Bijou, author of Attitude Reconstructions. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it very much.
It's just been my pleasure.
Yeah, so thank you again for all of you for joining us on the Aging Boomers. If you have family, friends that you'd like to have them listen to this interview with Jude, you can go to agingboomers.com. You could get it on iTunes, on iHeartRadio, download it on your iPhone or Android phone. So many ways to get it. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for your support, and be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all soon.